Dr. Robbi Ludwig.
Hello.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
I'm great.
Rick, do you want us to continue to stand, or should we?
Yeah, because Patrick and Heide.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. So Dr. Robbi Ludwig is here. She's a psychotherapist. Now we're going to talk about the types of personalities, right, that girls should avoid. I've been saying all day that I'm nervous to find out that I am also one of these persons. I'm going to hope that I'm not. But
do you think you are?
I don't think so. I mean, we'll see.
Well, you kind of know.
Yeah, well, we'll determine it. We'll figure it out. Do we want to bring everybody else in? Okay. So now Heidi Banks is here, relationship expert. Heidi, welcome to Backstage Live.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
This is live internet TV. I mean, it's probably the first time you guys have done live internet TV. You just came off of doing live TV.
Oh, okay. All right. We've been backstage before. I don't know if it's been live internet TV or not.
This
well,
is it.
maybe. All right.
Anything can
Not
happen.
you,
Anything, of course. Anything can happen. And last but not least, Patrick Corane, the senior editor from Maxim.
That's me.
One of my favorite magazines. I think.
Okay, you just decided you are a player. You wanted to know if you were a player.
Yeah.
When Maxim is your favorite magazine, you have given yourself away.
I mean,
in a good way.
in college, everybody reads Maxim. That's just what happens.
right.
And, I went to college, so whatever. I still read it. Anyway, let's just first talk about these stereotypes. Can one of you run through the 4 stereotypes and kind of describe what they are?
Well, I think we described them as the womanizer, right? And then there was the frat boy.
Okay.
And
Peter Pan.
Frat boy Peter Pan.
All right.
And who else did we have?
Never been married?
The Never Been Married.
Right.
Okay.
NBMs and the rebounder.
And the
rebounder.
rebounder. That's
Okay.
right.
And we're not talking about an exercise machine.
Yeah. We're not talking about Charles Barkley here.
So we got rebounder is the guy who's goes from one relationship to next and takes about a minute in between, or overlaps them.
Right.
And while he's talking about his ex that he can't get over.
Right.
So he's kind of sending the message, I'm really not emotionally available to you because I'm attached to somebody else from my past.
Okay. So which of these stereotypes, which of these sort of personality sets do you see the most of? Do you guys see the most of?
Oh, gosh.
That's an interesting
And
one.
sometimes there's overlap.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things we should just send the message out there. Sometimes you can have a womanizer who's a little bit of a frat boy, and never been married. Sometimes they overlap.
Okay.
And I think you also have to distinguish, because we don't want every woman being afraid of these people, that some of the never been marrieds have been in long-term relationships. We're talking about people who cannot commit to a long-term relationship, that, as soon as the getting gets tough, which it does in every relationship, they're
period
gone.
ends. Yeah.
They are gone. They are just like, bye.
So what are some of the, I know you guys are talking about red flags, sort of warning signs to say, hey, this guy probably falls into the womanizer group. What are some of those warning signs?
You catch him on a date with somebody else, and I'm not kidding. I have had clients who have said to me, well, I ran into him at a restaurant, and he pushes you away in such a way, like he'll say hello, and they're so cool that you almost think this isn't a date.
Yeah, right.
Even though your mind goes, this is a date,
Looks like it.
your instincts go, this is a date, if it walks like a duck.
Right.
So there's signals that you get, there's gut feelings you get.
Okay.
Really, that's probably the number one thing not to ignore.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing to do is to be aware of your gut feeling. And the other thing is, and you can back me up if you agree with it as the guy voice, the player is somebody who is very smooth, very good looking, likes the seduction, says all the right things, basically becomes the knight in shining armor, but their intention really isn't to be necessarily with one person. It's really not about the other person. It's about them having fun.
So it's like a refined skill almost,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the thing about like the player, or what else should we call him? The womanizer is, it's not like, yes, he might be like the big guy who walks into a room and commands all the attention, but sometimes he knows to just sit back and let women come to him, and that's really part of his skill, is he can sort of change his game depending on his target. And that's kind of what makes it a kind of tricky thing to really find, to be able to see.
The bottom line of it is it's all about feeding his ego, which is usually not a great ego system. It's usually he's the one that's a little bit insecure, but it just doesn't look that way to the world. example, when you get to know them, one of the reasons they move on is underneath it all, most players really believe they're not enough. Like you would look and go, oh my God, they have such a great ego. They really think they're special. Look at all these women. But underneath it all, they're going, if you really knew me, you would not love me. Right. So I better move on. Right.
Now, okay, so that's the player, the womanizer sort of role that we're talking about. But for these other ones, like the never been married or the rebounder, I mean, are we pushing them into stereotypes too early, or maybe are they just not finding the one? They haven't found the one yet, and maybe that's not their fault.
It could be. I mean, in some cases with the never been married or even with the frat boy, emotionally they're young, and you need to be a little bit mature to be in a committed relationship for some of these guys. So in part, it's timing for them. But you always, listen, we're always making judgments all the time, just in order to protect ourselves. But if you find that you're making judgments in a way that's not allowing you to be with any guy, then that's when you really have to be careful. You kind of have to balance it with keeping an open mind, because you really never know who you're dating until you get into it a bit. Right. You can find signals. So keep an open mind, but be cautious.
Sure.
And important. Because I love what you just said about your heart has to be opened or everybody's not going to work. Yeah. But the other part is when you do realize that the person you're with isn't right for you, cut it off. See, what a lot of women do, men do this too, but
cut it off.
It's
right. I hope not. I hope not.
If you're a guy.
But what we mean by cut it off is really get to that place where you go, it's over. Because those are the kind of relationships that keep pulling you back in, and the brain chemicals start going, and you become more and more addicted, and so then you become like obsessive.
Yeah. And then you don't want to waste time. If you happen to be a woman who wants to be in a relationship, and you're sensing this back and forth, and you're not feeling good and healthy and your best self in this relationship, then it's up to you to say, done, I'm looking for something that's really better for me. Because you can't rely on the guy to do that for you. Yeah. You can't rely on anybody else to do that for you ever, anyway.
Now, we're bashing guys a lot here. No. So I got to say, we're giving advice, but this is all, these guys are this, this guy's that. What about women? Are there personality groups to sort of stay away from, women personality groups?
Yeah. Well, also, just on the other side of that, because it's a great point, is that if you're finding yourself attracted to these men, it has much more to do with who you are than who they are. Yeah. So I would assume if you're going after a guy that's either a player or he's too young in his thinking, it's a reflection of what you're looking for, and you're attracting that in. So no matter who you end up with, they're going to end up being that same kind of person with those same patterns over and over again. So at some point you got to stop and say, why am I always attracting a player? Am I looking for something that isn't really about commitment? Am I committed to myself? Oh yeah. And yes. And there's the Angelina Jolies of the world who would have been called a player at some point, until she made a big shift.
Sure. There are women who get bored with guys or are highly ambivalent about relationships and, see men as almost two-dimensional objects. Of course, there are women who are gold diggers who are looking for men as ATM machines. There are, in order to be fair, I think there are people who are just not healthy relationship types, period, that come in the form of both women and men, in all fairness.
Have you noticed that there are a certain group of females?
Oh, absolutely. Some women, you can't really tell what they're interested in. And, like you said, they just, want to be taken out to dinner, but they don't really necessarily want to be in a relationship. Yeah. It's kind of, I guess it's like the female version of kind of being a player, sort of taking advantage of guys.
Is there a female frat boy? That's what I'd like to know. Is there a female equivalent of the frat boy?
You'd like to know one, or that's what you'd like to know?
No, I'd like to know. Does that exist? Do you
think it does? Absolutely. Maybe less so. I would say, and this is just kind of an interesting point in terms of the change in technology, women do answer to a biological clock in a way that men don't have to. That is just the way our biology is different. Having said that, now that women will have the option moving into the future of freezing their eggs, and they have other options in terms of surrogacy and having their own kids and egg donors, that it might prolong a woman's ability to stay out there and play a bit longer, since she doesn't necessarily have that 39-year-old
Window.
cutoff
Right.
in the
Yes.
same way.
And also, as women become more and more financially independent, because what we've seen, when you made a great point when you said, are women doing this? Well, it hadn't been in the past because women have been much more dependent on men. Now that shift is taking place, and in 10 years, it'll probably be a non-issue. I mean, we're really looking at financially things shifting in such a dramatic way so quickly that you can't. Women will be we will see as many female players
Just like
as
we're
we see
seeing
now.
cougars, right?
Yeah.
Who, so I think as we see these shifts going on,
Physiologically,
we won't be able to demonize men in the way that they've been demonized in a way.
So, point for the guys there.
Point for the guys. Yeah.
I have a question. It seems like nowadays, and this gets on my nerves, it's just like everything is very, we're going to take a step back, everything is very technology oriented with relationships. It's like everybody's texting each other, Facebook messaging each other. I feel like nobody calls anybody anymore. I tell all my guy friends when they meet girls that they like, I'm like, you should call her, not text her. Does this texting and Facebook? Hey, ladies, what's up? Does this sort of generation, does it allow for a player to be a player because it's easier to text somebody than
Absolutely, because what commitment? You just shoot off a text.
It's easy.
It's easy, and you could be with
And
a
you can
woman,
write.
and you can
You could just
text
write,
someone else.
Yeah.
It's very easy, and it's also tricky what you're saying about. You almost don't know what you should do, because if, let's say, I'll meet someone, I'm sort of, old-fashioned. Like, my instinct is to call them up on the phone. Right. But these days, no one calls anyone except for like the only person that calls me is like my mom. Like, if my phone rings, no one calls anyone anymore. It's all texting, and so you wonder, like, gee, should I call a girl?
I can answer that for you.
What do you
Because I care about your social life.
I appreciate that.
And I would say text, but to follow it up with a phone call would make you stand out above the crowd. And I think on some level, women appreciate a man going out of their way, and that would make you stand out.
It's not stalkery, though?
No. See, isn't
Stalker.
that amazing?
You know what I mean, right?
No.
It feels like you're like,
I'm
who's
ready.
this guy
I'm ready.
calling me?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Isn't
I have to
that
put down what I'm
amazing?
doing to talk to him.
Yeah.
And no one ever
Amazing
picks
that
up
this
either.
point
But you
in
know
our
what? Allow
culture
them to
that we're
call
even
you back.
calling it
Yeah, that's
stalking.
true.
When it feels good for them.
Yeah.
But I think, to get a phone call, that's above and beyond and is a chivalrous act.
Oh, yeah,
in these
see, making a
techno
phone call now.
times.
See,
There you
here's the
go.
thing. Here's the problem that you run into, and I talk to a lot of my girlfriends about this same issue, is that you meet somebody and you like them, and you don't want to disrespect them by just sending a text that says like, "Hey, what's up?" or whatever. Not that that's disrespectful, but whatever. You want to show that you like them, so you
Right.
decide to call them, and now it looks like you're saying, now it looks like you're doing too much. Who is
but
this
you can
guy?
text.
He's desperate.
Yeah.
That kind of
Let me tell
thing.
you something. I don't care about technology. I'm talking about the heart. If you like a person, if a guy likes a girl or a girl likes a guy, you can never do too much. You can never do. It's when they're really not interested that it's stalking. I can't even believe I'm using
Yeah,
that
I
word.
think that's another word for I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But I know, because I treat women all the time who are single. They love that text that says I'm thinking about you.
Right,
and
right.
anything that says you're worth it for me to go above and beyond is a really nice
good
thing.
shit.
And I also tell clients, and this is like amazing, because I'm sure we haven't seen this but in the last 5 years. If you start dating somebody, even the first date, just tell them, you know what, I'm somebody that really likes the phone. So let's not get into a texting thing.
Right.
If the guy is really turned off by that, and he can't do that minimal of picking up the phone, walk away.
I have to say, I have found men a lot better at using the phone than some women. I mean, even myself, like I have a girlfriend who's like, Robbi, why don't you ever call? It's like my phone skills have atrophied. It's like I'm always on my BlackBerry.
Yeah.
It's like I barely know how to talk on the phone anymore. It's
I mean,
very
'cause
funny.
the thing that's weird about texting is you can take as long as you want to formulate the
At any
answer.
time.
And it's like you can. Then it turns into like, I'm gonna play like I'm interested, but I'm really not interested. I'm gonna be interested, but I'm not interested.
You weigh every word. What did he mean by that? I was sitting next to
Exactly. Put it
two
on the
girls at
phone.
lunch the other day, and one is like, okay, let me show you the series of texts. What did he mean by that?
Yeah.
What did he mean by that? What do you think this means? What do you think?
What's
It's
nice about a text, like a letter, you can reread it and it can make you feel good over and over again. But, there's something to be said about that, hearing that person's voice, because I think when you like somebody, hearing their voice is sexy and it plays to a different aspect of your senses.
So, and it's an easier read
And
as
also,
well.
Yeah.
as human beings, we're separated three ways. We're either auditory, we're visual, or we're kinesthetic. We like to be touched, we like to see, or this is how we take in information, or we like to hear. there's a whole part of this population that really loves to hear messages. So unless your phone's talking to you, you know, it's reading the text. Robbi called. I like you.
That's very sexy.
It is not sexy.
That's not too sexy.
It ain't too sexy out there. So that, you know, you
Might
don't
be
know
funny.
who you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with an auditory person and you really want to score points, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Here's a question that I struggle with myself. So you're interested in somebody, maybe you finally say, okay, forget this, I'm not going to text them, I'm going to call them. You call, they don't pick up, do you leave a voicemail? I feel like every time I leave a voicemail, I sound like a complete idiot. Yeah. So it's like, do you leave the voicemail to show that you really want them to call you back? I mean, what do you think?
I think if you make the phone call, you have to leave the message, because then it's just like, it's like a non-effort. It's like, because they're going to see your missed call. Yeah. You know, so they see the missed call, he didn't leave a message. What does that mean? At least like, yeah, just keep it short. That's all right. Yeah. You know, hey, it's me. You know, just gonna say hi. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, you don't need to go into your birth story.
Right.
Just, you know, hey, I'm thinking about you. Would you like to go out again?
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, it's like what George Costanza did. His trick is he would, when he was like talking to a girl, leaving a message, he'd be eating an apple because he thought that'd make him sound casual.
It's the breezy approach. And don't feel stupid ever calling a girl.
I mean, no, the message I leave is like, hey, it's Steven. I'm here. I'm just like, you know, sitting on the plaza and interviewing some people and just seeing what you're doing, and maybe later it just like goes on forever.
You were like back in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And if the girl likes you, you know what she's thinking?
She's thinking it's cute.
She's thinking beyond that, wow, he really wants me in his life. He really wants me in his life. And that's the nice part.
So what about, okay, we're back to these 4, you know, groups of people to avoid, groups of guys to avoid. You know, is there a location where these sort of groups,
anywhere,
you know, assemble?
Anywhere, anytime.
Yeah. Just like you can meet a great guy or woman anywhere, you can meet a player or a rebounder or, you know, whatever, never been married.
If you go out on a date and it's 11 o'clock and you know that his apartment is closer and you're both in a taxi, for those in New York, I know we're national, and he goes, well, I'm going out now to meet my friends, it's a hint. It's a hint. So the time of day, you can really much play it out. Like 11 o'clock on a Friday night, you should be heading home, not heading out.
Now, we're wrapping it up here. I have one quick question. Just answer, you know, in one word or two each. What is the most unexpected place that you guys think people can actually meet people? I always think it's on a train or a plane, but do you have any quick, like, you know, not bars?
You know, I'm wondering a coffee shop, Starbucks, where a lot of people frequent.
Okay.
The most unexpected place?
Yeah, like one that people might not think.
Go there next.
Well, one place that I always notice is like there's like in Midtown, like a lunch, like those soup places. They're just filled with women.
Yeah.
Like you ever go to Hale and Hardy? It's just like the line is like 100 women. It's like I'm the only guy there. So I'm like tasting soup. So like, hey,
soups and salad. I'll tell you this: elevators. You get on an elevator, and most of us get on and we're like this.
I like that.
Pick up your head and smile and say hello. Just when you get on, just go hello.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed how many times in 30 floors.
Yeah.
It could be a marriage.
I love that one.
All right.
I always think, I travel a lot for work, and sometimes we take the Acela train to D.C., and I always think, man, trains, so romantic. I feel like I'm going to meet a girl on a train every time, and it's always like, you know, businessmen, like 6-year-old businessmen. But that's that. I think we're out of time here, Rick. Are we?
We have some animal rescue.
Great. We're continuing our animal week here on the Backstage Live at the Saturday Early Show. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I learned some tips today, I think.
Did you? Good.
I'm gonna go to Hale and Hardy after this.
Barbara's in the chat. She said you did a great job.
Oh, Barbara. I wonder if my mom's name's Barbara, so it could possibly be her. If it is, thanks, Mom. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again, and
thank you.
we'll see you soon.